I think people are scared of their opportunity being taken away. Essentially, they're scared that all the jobs are gonna disappear and all our resources are gonna be taken, etc.
These immigrants might become majority now in the U.S. and what power could they do, or they might be scared of what their full potential might be here in the United States with more opportunities than what they would have back in their countries.
Okay. Of the 8.2 billion people, how many of them would like to leave their country and permanently migrate somewhere else? Because they're asking people, in Papua New Guinea or Indonesia or Malaysia or, Lesotho or Nigeria or Ghana or anywhere, right? Where do you think the number one country is? What's the number one country where people want to go?
U.S.
Why do you think the U.S.? Why do you think so many people, American voters, are saying that this is really the most important issue? What are they seeing?
I think people are scared of their opportunity being taken away. Essentially, they're scared that all the jobs are gonna disappear and all our resources are gonna be taken, etc.
Is that how you think people frame it? Jobs and resources,
Yeah, I'm not saying that definitively. It's just if I had to guess why people are the most concerned about that.
Okay.
I mean, just to base off what she said, job opportunities and criminal rates will be a big problem also with immigration. The more people in the state, the more crimes will be committed.
Okay. So you think actually adding crime to that is a big issue?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I agree with what they have said. A lot of people might be intimidated because there might not be a lot of job opportunities anymore, but I feel like they also might be intimidated by the fact that these immigrants might become majority now in the U.S. and what power could they do, or they might be scared of what their full potential might be here in the United States with more opportunities than what they would have back in their countries.
Okay. Crime is an issue. Can you say more about that? Who do you think what are people saying about crime?
I just want to say getting into the country illegally, not following the process to get here the right way. And then just instead of getting a job, making money the wrong way, selling drugs or robbing.
That's the kind of thing that you hear people saying, stuff like that. Okay. Do you have anything else you would add? Now that
I wanted to add on to what she said about people thinking that immigrants are going to take over the majority, but aren't they already the majority?
Well,
because most of America, unless you're native, you weren't here originally.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right.
And
that's fair.
Most people are descended from immigrants, at least if they're not an immigrant themselves. I think in my family, it was my great-grandparents that immigrated here.
Yeah, okay, everybody, the only they're still immigrants, but not by choice, would be people who trace their ancestry to the North American slave trade, right? So African Americans who trace their ancestry to the slave trade, they're the only people who would be considered not immigrants, in a way, is what you're saying. Okay, yeah. So the world population is 8.2 billion people, okay? 8.2 billion. Of the 8.2 billion people, how many of them would like to leave their country and permanently migrate somewhere else? If they got a chance, they would pick up roots, pack their bags, and they would go somewhere else and never go back home, because they're really unhappy with where they are. What's your gut? Come up with a number, or a percent even.
I would just say around 75%.
75%? Okay.
That's more than what I had in mind. More like a 25 to 30%.
Okay.
I would say definitely at least like 10, 15% at least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to like overshoot it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's about 900 million people. Okay. Now we know this. This is a Gallup does this every several years. They go around the world and they interview people and they ask them, adults, like, where, if you could go, where would you go? What would you like to do? You know, and we get a sense of this, right? So 900 million people. So 16% of adults around the world. All right. So here is what they say. But even though 900 million is not 16% of 8.2 billion, but 16% of adults. So this includes children and the whole thing, right? Now, is that a big number or a small number? How do you see
900 million
that?
is quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because that's only 16% of the world doesn't mean that's not a lot of people.
16% of the adults, right?
Yeah, the adults.
Yeah. So if we look at it total, it's like 11%, right? So, but 900 million is a lot of people. Well, what do you think when you see that number?
I think it's a lot of people.
What makes it a lot of people, actually?
I mean, 900 million people is a lot. I feel like that a large number like that says that there's something wrong, like with like why they want to leave their countries.
And yet, if you think about all of the different layers of wealth in the world, and the idea that everyone's trying to improve themselves, it's actually not a lot of people. From another perspective, it's actually fairly small, because what it's saying is, well, but over 7 billion people want to stay home. Like, they don't want to go anywhere. It doesn't matter, even if they're poor or they're not really rich. They don't really want to be sitting in this room, per se. They want to be where they're at. Okay, so where do you think they want to go? There are all sorts of countries around the world where they can go. Okay? It's because they're asking people, in Papua New Guinea or Indonesia or Malaysia or, Lesotho or Nigeria or Ghana or anywhere, right? Where do you think the number one country is? What's the number one country where people want to go?
U.S.
Why do you think the U.S.?
Well, it's the country with the most opportunities, quotations, because that's what most people think. It's also one of the most popular ones with migration laws and everything.
Sophie, what do you think?
If I had to say not the U.S., I'd maybe say this is based off, I think we talked about this in a reading or a video for one of the exams. They said that the immigration into India is rising a lot lately.
So the first choice is the U.S., right? Of all these people, 18% are going like, yep, that's my first choice. But it's only 18%, which says something, right? So, and one of the reasons for this, that I think this is a really interesting slide, is because, and this is really important, especially for Americans. It's not so important for people who are not Americans, but the United States is not at the center of the world. You know what I mean? There are a lot of other countries that are in play here. So it's not necessarily the U.S. So this is the percentage of populations with the highest percentage of people who really want to leave. Yeah. Look at Sierra Leone, man. Like, 3 out of 4 people. Lebanon was never on the list until the crisis in Lebanon. Afghanistan is actually much higher now than it was when we asked this question. But, you look at these are the countries, right? And a lot of those folks are never going to make it to the United States, right? So this is the idea. They could think like, hey, maybe I want to come to the United States, but I'm never going to make it there.